what I really wanted to do is explore those big questions of life. What does it mean to be alive? Who am I? How can I connect to other people?
There is also this tendency to say, why would I think about these questions of life? Because I just have this moment now.
By not thinking about it, you're actually choosing something. You are choosing to live the way you were told to live. Drinking matcha tea and going to Pilates, and doing what everyone is doing. You could love it, and that would be amazing. But it has to be authentic to you. When you do something that's meaningless, you start feeling existential crisis, guilt, anxiety, in a way where intuitively something is wrong. That's not me.
How do you start understanding what's meaningful for you? Christina, welcome to the Everything You Are podcast. Do you want to say in your own words a bit about what you do?
So basically, I'm an eclectic psychotherapist. So I use different modalities to really cater to every client's needs. So to really delve into the past, there is a psychodynamic approach. To really work on the tools, I use REBT, which is a rational emotive behavioral therapy. And schema is a bit between past and present, and it has a lot of tools. And recently, I've started my doctorate degree in Existential Psychotherapy.
Mm-hmm. And why did you decide to go into Existential Psychotherapy as well?
Okay, so basically, when I decided to be a psychologist, what I really wanted to do is explore those big questions of life. What does it mean to be human? Where do we come from? What is religion? What are emotions? Why do we need to connect? Really big questions, deep existential questions. So when I started psychology at uni at first, it was all about psychology, meaning the science of behavior, of thoughts and emotions, meaning we delved into the brain, the science, the neuroscience, pathologies. So we resume the client's story and symptoms to his symptoms and to certain criteria, meaning he is depressed, we need to treat his depression. It's really reductionist. Personally, I find it a reductionist approach because we need to see really the person in its context rather than his depression or if he's functional or not. So this is why I decided to go into existential psychotherapy.
I feel like this is also a frustration that is common for patients who go to see a psychologist. They feel like they put them in a certain box of something they have and not maybe explore enough what it is. So as if I felt this also sometimes when because I saw different and I tried different types of therapy. I felt like sometimes the psychologist doesn't really listen to you. They are in their mind already trying to see what it is that you have, and which is not the purpose. The purpose is to be heard for what you are saying and to explore your particular situation.
To be reduced to an interpretation. Exactly. Yeah. And I've experienced that with some of my patients who started with another therapist. They come up with a diagnosis already about their, it's like they're distant from themselves, from their story, and they explore their story through theories. Like, my problem is I have an attachment style that's preventing me from living an authentic relationship, and I need to work on that. Because of my childhood, this happened in my childhood, and this means I'm repressing. But how does it make you feel? How do you live your life? How do you look at your life as a whole, rather than to this detached self that's not really experiencing, you're not really understanding yourself this way? And this is the where existentialism, there is also an aspect of existentialism, which is phenomenology.
Okay.
So we describe rather than explain.
Okay, what does it mean?
Meaning you describe what you're experiencing in that moment, not rationally, but rationally as well. Like you observe your thoughts, you share how you're experiencing it within your thoughts, and most importantly, through your body. What is happening in your body when this is happening to you? And we invite the patient really to get to know himself through his body. How does my body feel when I'm safe? So that I can differentiate it from when I'm not safe. If I'm only in my mind, then I'm going to constantly question things rather than trust myself. So this is something we really do. Focus on your body. Focus on bring awareness to your emotional embodiment experience and to your rational also embodiment experience, rather than, as I said, just to what you think about that. I don't want to know what you think about that. I want to know, how is it for you? How do you experience it? How do you experience love? How do you experience death? Rather than how you should experience it, how you think you're not experiencing the right way.
Yeah, I can relate a lot to this because I used to also be a lot like this. I used to analyze a lot and think a lot, but not really feel stuff.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people have that, because in the way we are used to interacting with each other, we don't really, so we say a lot what we think and our analysis and logical stuff, but I feel like it's less common to, in a conversation, say, yes, I feel this in this part of my body and it's like this. So we don't have a lot of vocabulary on this, and we're not very used to it. So and I think it's really interesting, the mix of knowing the theories, but also having this more different approach to it, because I feel like also sometimes theories are helpful to understand, to see, okay, what are the thoughts I could be having, or what are the mechanisms I could be experiencing, and then also seeing, but is it actually true? What is happening now?
Yeah, checking within. Yeah. Checking within. But this is existentialism. We are not only intellectualizing about existence, but you are experiencing it even in session. We are experiencing it. So in session, I'm not like the expert. I'm another human being with you, exploring your life as a whole. But also it's a way of living. Existentialism also is a way of living. There's a really nice book, which is How to Be an Existentialist, meaning that it's not merely about theorizing about existence, but also living in an existential way. So maybe now I can introduce what's existentialism more in depth. So it's a philosophy. If you want, it was really discussed after or during the French Revolution. So among many great existentialists like Sartre, Beauvoir, Camus, Heidegger also, and Kierkegaard, and so on. So they discussed about the existence of life. What does it mean to be alive? What does it mean? Who am I as a person? What is the self? How can I connect to other people? So they see life in a realistic way. They look at the facticities of life, meaning the givens of life, the limitations of life. There's a tragedy in life that we can't ignore. I can't say you're depressed and something is wrong with you, because sometimes you're depressed because what's happening is tragic in life. For example, some givens that create this sense of, that explores actually and reveals why and how life can be tragic is first the concept of death. So we are aware of our mortality, but we act as if we're not, as if we are immortal. And when we talk about death, we talk also about change. So right now I'm experiencing something nice, but later on it's a nice sunset, but later on it's night. And I'm living a very nice holiday, but it ends. And with my parents, and we're laughing and I'm enjoying my parents, and suddenly it hits me, one day they won't be here. So there is this vulnerability in life that I cannot deny. It's there. So this is the first concept, death. Also the fact that death exists. A lot of people exist. I mean, death is something that's there in itself. A lot of people try to, let's say, contour it. So we can talk about the social aspect of how we can try to avoid it through surgeries or through trying to continue our legacy, through trying to be special in life. If I become so powerful, so wealthy, maybe I can. So it's unconscious. It's not. Maybe unconscious is not. It's not unconscious in a way, because I'm not sure about this word, but it's it's not in our awareness. Direct awareness, something we don't pay attention to, but it's there. And so this vulnerability to death makes us question when we experience it. Like, for example, in Lebanon, it's something we experience, something our parents experience, and firsthand, like the 4th of August. And when you're aware of it and you don't really identify it and talk about it and explore it and sit with it, what happens is that we try to deny it. So I'm going to live life to the fullest. Let's say we can see that in Lebanon, like we're binging on meaning in life. And the type of meaning that I see, and it's based on my own view and opinion, is that we binge on pleasure and hedonic, let's say, pleasure. I'm going to party, drugs. I'm going to focus on my job. I'm going to focus on the pleasure I have when someone gives me approval, because we're aware that we're going to die anytime. And we don't connect to that fear. We don't identify it. So if I can't identify it, it will take control of me. If I identify it and talk about it, then I can sit and rationalize and think about my life and how am I living my life. And then there is this other aspect also in Lebanon, which is this choice we have to make of staying or leaving. And this brings a lot of anxiety, because it's my choice, it's my responsibility. And that's another theme of existentialism, which is I'm free to choose my life the way I want to. And if I'm free, it means I'm responsible. And it's not, it is a bliss, but also an agony. Freedom is also an agony. For those who left, there is this sense of questioning and doubt. Did I make the right decision? And there is a sense of loss. They didn't choose, some didn't choose, a lot of them also didn't choose personally to leave the country. They left because they had to, because there is no safety, physical, like in terms of physical safety, and there is no safety also for your future sometimes. Like for some jobs, yeah, you do, some professions, you do have the possibility to work. But for others, it's limiting in different ways, so they chose to leave. And there is this sense of not belonging anywhere, because also when you come back to Lebanon, it's different. Your friends are different. The house is different. Like this house you left when you were 18, you were an adolescent, and now you're this adult who's visiting this room, and you have this experience of two selves, like clashing. Who am I? What are my friends are different? And did I make the good decisions? And also we idealize Lebanon. You know, like this country that I love, there is nothing, there is no country better than Lebanon. And when they come back, there is this illusion that's shattered. And that's very hard to experience, because it's not the same. Time has changed things, and you have changed. So this sense of loss, and I don't belong anywhere anymore. This is where existentialism helps. First, because once you're in that, you idealize the country, but you hold yourself so responsible for that choice in a way that you doubt yourself, but you also criticize yourself. You feel bad for leaving. You feel guilty for leaving, for not being there with others, for not fighting for your country, for not providing for, like, financially, your this money goes abroad and not in the country. And you become very critical with yourself. So in existentialism, we also explore that, the aspect of choice, of freedom. And yeah, it's also another theme of existentialism that's very applicable to what we experience in Lebanon, because there is an existential crisis. There is a very big existential crisis that no one's talking about.
And I feel like also, I have so many questions, by the way, about everything.
Go on.
But I know, let's start with this. I feel like also sometimes, especially maybe, like you said, in Lebanon, because we have this hyper awareness that everything can end and everything can change at any moment. So we want pleasure now, and we want to enjoy things now while they last, and maybe avoid planning things that are more long-term, thinking more about the future. There is also this tendency to say, why would I think about these themes? Why would I think about these questions of life? Because anyways, I just have this moment now. So why do you think it's important to actually question this and actually think about these topics, even though it's uncomfortable to do so?
Here what you're talking about is being skeptical about existence in itself. Why should I discuss about meaning in life? Why should I discuss about death if I just want to live my life and it doesn't make sense since it's going to end? When you're skeptical to that point, to a reductionist viewpoint, meaning it doesn't matter, it's reduced to nothing, then it leads to an existential emptiness. Life feels empty, it feels lonely, and it feels meaningless. And first, it's to identify what's going on when you are actually being too self-reflective and reducing your life to nothingness. How do you experience it when you do that? It must be very unpleasant. So how about if you knew that you could find meaning that's personal to you? There is maybe, we don't know, this is a big question. What's the meaning of life in itself? It's a big question. I don't know. I can't answer that. But what I can is help you find what's meaningful for you. I hope I can help you find that, but usually it works to help you find what's meaningful for you personally as an individual. You know?
So you mean when you don't question and you're always just living in the moment, it's like you're missing out on something that you could be doing that would actually make it better, but you're not even seeing that there's something missing, so you don't even know that there's something missing. Yeah,
like you're missing out on authentic meaning, something that's meaningful for you. And actually, by not thinking about it, you're actually choosing something. You are choosing to live the way you were told to live. So that's what one of my professor, Joel Voss, calls Mac meaning. So the 10 steps to happiness. Or you start drinking matcha tea and going to Pilates, you know, and doing what everyone is doing. You could love it, you know, and that would be amazing. If you do that and you love it, and that's the paradox here. It can be functional, which is like the Mac meaning, but it can also be authentic to you. So we're not really like here criticizing the aspects of what you're doing, but it has to be authentic to you.
So how do you know the difference? How do you know if it's authentic or not?
We're talking about meaning.
Yes.
Right? Okay. So when you do something that's meaningless, you know it. You start feeling empty, existential emptiness. You start feeling existential crisis, guilt, anxiety, in a way where you know intuitively something is wrong. Something's wrong. That's not me. And here phenomenology helps, this embodiment we were talking about at the beginning, where you connect to yourself and see really by asking yourself those questions, by reflecting on those questions, in a way where I'm skeptical here. But I'm skeptical and intuitively connecting to myself.
Yeah, I like that, and because it's not, so you're saying there's not one generic answer of what meaning is that you can find in a book or whatever.
I wish that would be so much easier.
Yeah.
Personally, in my life, and personally also as in my profession. But there isn't, and that this is also what makes life beautiful.
Yes.
Also makes it worth living for.
It's nice because you have something to discover about yourself, about about life in general.
Yeah.
Okay, what is meaning? How do you define meaning?
So first, what is not meaning? It's when it's meaningless, when you feel empty, when you feel that you're not experiencing life the way you want to. And what's meaningful is what's meaningful to me rather than what's meaningful as a whole, as a something universal. And it's like a package deal. First, there is a direction. I'm heading towards somewhere. So it could be meaningful sailing, for example. When I sail, it's meaningful for me because I'm heading towards that lighthouse. So there is a specific direction. Being a psychologist is meaningful for me because it's doing something. The type of meaning I'm experiencing is above and beyond myself. It's transcending myself towards others. It helps me be there with others. And then you have also values. So what's meaning, it's also what's valuable, what's important for you. Whether it's social, for example, a type of meaning, social types of meaning, to belong to a society, which is very important, social and transcendental, which is meaning beyond ourselves. Scientifically, we have understood that those are really what gives us this satisfaction in life. Those are like the slow happiness. They don't give us quick happiness, like pleasure, hedonistic pleasures type of meaning, or self type of meaning. Those are more quick happiness. But on the long run, I'm not really feeling satisfied. What helps me feel satisfied, it's once my meaning is more towards others, transcending myself, and more social. And what's meaning as well is commitment also. I'm not just saying I meant to do that. I'm actually doing it. I'm committed. I have certain actions. And meaning is also existential. Also, existential. What do I mean by existential? The mere fact of being alive. The mere fact that I'm going to die, or that other people are going to die, gives life meaning. And you have other also aspect of existential meaning. This is one. So this is what meaning is, if you want. It's a package deal, and it's personal to you, and you need to explore it. Once you let go of any assumptions you have, when you bracket those assumptions, let's say I'm a friend, and when I'm with that friend, actually, I never questioned how I feel. He's a long-term friend. He's a childhood friend. And I never question how I feel with that person. And I'm just friends with them because they're my childhood friend. But when I start questioning and being skeptical and asking how I feel with that person, why am I friends with that person, I can understand and choose and make choices in my life so that I can live a meaningful life. Because meaning, it's something we haven't mentioned, but also having meaning in life is what helps you overcome any struggles. It doesn't give meaning to the situation itself. Like, for example, let's say you have chronic pain. Having meaning about something, let's say, and living a meaningful life despite the chronic pain, it's not about meaning in my chronic pain or about my chronic pain. There's nothing meaningful about that. It's horrible. But once I have something to look up for, then I can bear this pain. And to really like give an example about that, Viktor Frankl, he wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning. So it's a very famous book. And what he created logotherapy. So logotherapy is an approach, an existential approach, a meaning-centered existential approach to psychotherapy. So after he experienced suffering in the Holocaust, so he was in the Holocaust, and his wife passed away. He experienced some humiliation, abuse. Can't imagine what he went through. But after that, he wrote a book, this book, and he created logotherapy, which is how to find meaning and how meaning has helped him survive this horror, this despair. And this is why he explains he's still alive, because some of them during the Holocaust passed away also from the suffering. Some couldn't, which is explainable. It was horrible. They couldn't really live their life normally afterwards. But he was able to because he found meaning during that period. And this is why his example, and I love his example and his story, because it gives, it's like a model, someone that we can look up to once we are in a situation that's difficult for us.
And so how did he find meaning?
So actually, he was able to work. They allowed him to work. He was a doctor initially, a psychiatrist. So he was able to work. And he also explored that he found meaning through love. So he wanted to have relationships again, also with his other inmates, let's call them this way. And through the mere fact of staying alive also. So something we have mentioned, he wanted to stay alive. He believed things will get better.
Do you feel like this is the most fundamental meaning that we can have, just finding meaning from being alive? Because if you have that, no matter what happens, you still have like a fundamental or basis for...
Like it grounds you, you mean? It grounds you? Yeah, it does ground us. But also if this is like the only thing we have, then we're going to feel empty. You know, we're going to start feeling empty.
How do you start understanding what's meaningful for you? How does one go about it? Let's say someone is listening to this conversation and they say, okay, I don't know, actually, I'm not sure if I have meaning and how to find it and what's my approach to it.
So practically, we apply, there are therapies that are really centered around meaning. So we call them meaning-centered psychotherapy that derive from existentialism. So it's not just intellectualizing. We're not going to intellectualize about meaning. There are certain skills that we're going to apply in session and in your in between sessions as well, where you can start exploring what's meaningful for you. And first, I need to understand where is this person starting from. So, what is his attitude towards meaning? Is it functional? So, is he, as we said, going through life? He wants to be happy, or he wants to be powerful, or he wants to love because it makes him feel better. Then in what way is this impacting your meaning in life? How does it really, like, I need to identify what doesn't allow you to experience meaning in life. So this is one of them. Sometimes it's also traditional, theological, meaning, so back then, let's say, in the previous generation, meaning was about a social ladder. So there was religion, and religion that described how we should live our lives. And your place in society revolved around that. So let's say you wanted friendships, you have to go to church and meet people there. That's how you are part of society. Or it's not love for the sake of love. You get married to have children, and you need a wife, and you need kids. That's how you belong to society. And there is a social ladder, a social a religious ladder. And this is how before we used to give meaning to life. We can see some people today, they have this traditional aspect to life still, that brings a lot of anxiety, because there is like a hierarchy, and then it makes me question myself. I feel less worthy. And we explore that. We explore really, where is he? How does he really connect to meaning? From which point? And what I want him, let's say, to get to is the phenomenological, intuitive, skeptical aspect altogether of meaning in life, which is, as we said, to question yourself. Take a leap of faith in uncertainty and explore. So you can start, for example, something I did is write down everything that was meaningful for the past year, everything that was meaningful for the past months, every moment that was meaningful for me for the past week, and for that day, let's say. And I started exploring the patterns.
What are examples of things, for example, that to write down, that you wrote down, or someone else?
It's something personal.
Okay.
It's not like anyone's gonna write it down, but then I can point it out to a larger, really meaning, which is those types of meaning. Self, is it a self type of meaning? Is it a social type of meaning? Is it existential type of meaning? But what would you write, for example? What was one thing that was meaningful for you that year, that week, that day?
Okay, so for example, what was meaningful for me that year was starting this podcast, doing my life coaching session, challenging myself in my work, and feeling like I'm doing things that are useful for other people. So when someone tells me, for example, oh, I watch your podcast and it helped me, that this I find meaningful. But also, for example, what's meaningful for me is seeing my friends and going out to party and having fun. Like it's not the same maybe like level of values, but it's also meaningful for me. Exercising is meaningful for me because it makes me feel good. I feel a lot of different things on different themes that you mentioned. Can be, yes.
And you mentioned two things here: a ranking of meaning. So some are less meaningful than others for you. And you mentioned also the paradox, like being there for others and also being there for myself. They can both coexist. So this is something we do as well. We normalize, as well. And also questioning all those meaning you have in a Socratic way, meaning what's meaningful about that? Until I get to a satisfying answer, let's say, satisfying for you. Once you feel you have gotten really to explore the biggest theme, and then you can start really seeing what's meaningful for you.
And I guess you can also find out what's meaningful for you by seeing how you spend your time or what you do during your day. If you're someone who's not very in touch with how you feel and stuff like that, just seeing externally in your life, what do you do? How much time you attribute to things, stuff like that. So actually, also going back to the previous question of why it's useful to ask these type of questions, it affects us anyways, whether we ask them or not. They manifest in the way we live our lives. So might as well live it in a way that you are convinced about by questioning, by seeing them for what they are, rather than just, like you said, just being taken and going to...
Passive.
Passive, yes.
Passive, yes. But when you're passive, you are making a choice
to be passive.
To be passive and not to question. You are choosing. Even when you think you're not choosing, you're choosing. This is what's important to mention, and for everyone like to know that that's why it's important for us to explore those questions, because I'm choosing without knowing.
I feel also, and we spoke about this shortly once, that sometimes, for me, from my experience, we can go into the extreme of questioning everything.
Yeah.
And always questioning, and being very skeptical about things. And maybe, is that what's called an existential crisis?
Yeah, it could be. It could be.
Yeah. And that sometimes extreme questioning, maybe it's necessary sometimes, but it can also be very chaotic and very, maybe it doesn't have to be this extreme. I don't know. What do you think about this?
I have so many things to say about that, because, I hear, how do I avoid this anxiety of questioning? And you're not going to avoid it. I want you to be anxious. Anxiety also is a big theme of existentialism. It's not a problem. Anxiety is not a problem. Anxiety is a drive. And if I fear anxiety, if I fear being pressured, then I'm not really going to go there. And I'm not going to grow. It helps me grow. It helps me, for example, take that exam. It helps me feel this pressure of saying what's truly in my heart to my parents, to my friends, because I want them to also be there around me. So anxiety is important. It's normal. It's not a pathology. It can sometimes be detrimental once I'm anxious about being anxious, once I believe it's a problem. This is why regulation, emotional regulation, and here rational emotive behavioral therapy helps as well here to tolerate those emotions. So this is one aspect. The second aspect is when you're questioning a lot, you're too reflective about life, you also need to experience life, be more in actions, into like reduce the intentionality of things, let's say.
What do you mean, the analysis of things?
I mean intentions, reduce intentions.
How?
Of why I'm doing this, and like let's say, for example, you're too reflective about I shouldn't be sad. So remove the intention of how you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be feeling, and just continue, act, in your actions rather than in your thoughts and your reflections. And here's the paradox also, and it's another theme of also existentialism, is that everything is paradoxical. Reflect but don't reflect. Feel sad, but also sadness, it means you're dreading the future, and it's all paradox, and we need to tolerate them, to tolerate the discomfort of being uncomfortable.
Yeah, and I feel like it's challenging sometimes because we like to have a set answer or guideline, or okay, I feel good when I do this and I don't feel good when I do this, and like just an ordered life. And then I feel in the existentialist perspective, it's just to, okay, have this, but it's flexible, it can adapt, it can change, you can let it go and throw it all out tomorrow maybe.
It's actually completely having the courage to live and taking full leap of faith in life while reflecting on the side, and reflecting during also, like keeping a diary, daily diary. How did I feel today with that friend? How did I feel about that? Keeping a diary of my bodily sensations as well.
Yes. I feel like we can speak a lot. But also, actually, one thing I wanted to mention, but it's not a question, it's just an addition, about the self-awareness. I feel like something for me that was very useful was just sometimes staying alone, but really alone, without my phone, without anything. And I feel like now, because we are always connected and we have so many screens and things, we don't do this, but just being alone and seeing, okay, what am I thinking when I have nothing to do? What's happening? What do I feel? For me, it was the most beneficial tool that I used, actually, to be more self-aware, to just know myself, and like having conversations with yourself and being curious about what comes up, because sometimes also what comes up is not nice. It's not comfortable. You get stuff that you don't want to look at, but yeah, this was useful for me.
That takes so much courage to do that, actually, and
it's not easy.
It's not but it's either the easy road or authentic and meaningful for you, and you chose that.
Do you have anything to say to wrap up?
So there's so much to say about that topic.
Of course.
It was really introductory, and I invite anyone to dig deeper into those aspects of philosophy. Any philosophy, you don't have to go into existentialism, but not focus merely on psychology and already made up interpretation and theories, but exploring and questioning yourself and exploring other people, how they question their life. And that's how philosophy, this is where philosophy comes and can be applied in your life. To read more philosophy books rather than self-help books, or if you don't like to read, you can listen to podcasts and audiobooks. It will really help you define yourself, and I don't know if we can say it, but undefine yourself, undress yourself. It is anxiety provoking, very anxiety provoking, and it feels like you're in an abyss in that moment, but very, very, very rewarding on the long run. And it's an ongoing thing. It's not something you do when you reach a place and I've been doing that for years, and it's I just want to enjoy it rather than to reach a certain place in my life, because I will never reach a certain place. I'm a human being. We're all human beings. But just questioning to live your authentic, personal, meaningful life, let's say. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Camille.
Thank you.
It was nice being here with you.